So the session for today is about one interesting pointer, which is there is no one here. And I sent an email in regard to this that I would like to read it to you. The email, if I can find it.
I think that's the only pointer. There's no one here.
The only pointer that what?
There's no one here. It's the only pointer.
There's no one here. There was never anyone here.
Yeah. Is the no one I don't know where I left this. Okay, here it is. So let's. Alright, so the subject for today is the pointer, the liberating pointer. There is no one here. So I'm going to read a few lines from the email I sent so that we get a little bit into the subject, and then we will do a short meditation and we will continue discussing more this pointer. The assumption that you are a someone living inside your body may be an interesting, convincing, and very appreciated assumption, but it is the main cause of your suffering, and it is false. It does not require much investigation of the truth about yourself to prove the point. You are so and so, the person you think you are, and the separate life you imagine to be, you as such are not there. Obviously, there is life inside your body, but that life is not the life you imagine to be. You imagine that such life is you and so, with a unique story and unique thoughts and feelings. That is nonsense, however. The life that lives inside your body is undifferentiated life, with capital L. That life is the life that animates every sentient being in the universe. It is completely impersonal. The above is the truth about you. You may like it or you may hate it. However, the truth about you will make you free. Therefore, being open to investigate the truth about yourself is essential if you want liberation from suffering. The realization there is no one here is of immense value and very freeing, and it has been called awakening. The pointer, there is no one here, is helpful to attain such a realization and to sustain a significant level of emptiness in your everyday life, emptiness of self. Okay, so let's have a little meditation using the pointer, meaning we can simply use the pointer, and during the exhalation we tell ourselves there is no one here, and we follow the pointer and until the intention of realizing this will make you feel empty, right? Or spacious. So that's a very simple form of meditation. What is very important is to do not feel any pressure, because if you don't feel empty, who cares, right? It's not important. Still, actually, whether you feel empty or not, you are not there. the, the feelings that we want, the feeling of emptiness that is so beautiful, may come or may not. But the reality is that you, as so and so, you are not there anyway, regardless of whether you feel it or you don't. So, feeling anxious about not feeling or feeling empty is nonsense. You're empty anyway. We're empty of self. We are imagining, and that creates contraction, and that's the feeling of me here, that contraction around a belief system, the belief system that I am so and so, with a story, a past, a future, and so on. So let's close our eyes, and let's begin by taking 3 deep breaths. And during the exhalation, allow your body to relax. So let us inhale and exhale, relaxing. Inhale again and exhale, relaxing the whole body from head to toe. And once more, inhale deeply and exhale, relaxing the whole body from head to toe. So as the body continues naturally to breathe without being concerned about how it breathes, just allowing the breath to flow naturally, during the exhalation, you just remind yourself and use the pointer that there is no one here. And then you can shorten it. You can say there is no one. And finally, you may just say no one. So let's begin. But start with the whole sentence in the beginning. There is no one here. So the self with a capital S seems to be enjoying in the universe to do selfing with lower caps. Selfing in this context would be creating identities, and it creates identities all over the universe inside the bodies that occupies, especially in beings with higher intelligence. Animals do have a very basic ego, but we human beings develop the ego or the little self to the extreme. And obviously, what is doing this is the one consciousness, or what we call the self with capital S, and is enjoying selfing, creating self, creating little selves, which are not real actually. But the consciousness has the feeling and the belief in each one of us that is actually living the little self that we call me, and that it is that me. So eventually, consciousness wakes up from that illusion and begins to see that the little self that created is not the real life in the organism. It's just conceptual, or it's just imagination. Now, why the universe enjoys creating identity and identifying itself with all these organisms and bodies, I don't know. But obviously there is some enjoyment in creating this, and it makes life and the drama of life much more intense, because if we didn't have identification or the imagination that we are the little self here, we would probably dissolve this vehicle very fast, and consciousness would leave the body, because there would be no attachment to it. The attachment to the body comes from this identification with the body and these beliefs that consciousness comes to believe that it is this body, and it is this mind, and it is this self, this little self that we call me. So it's what really gives flavor to the drama of life. But at some point, for whatever reason, consciousness begins to feel tired of the dream, tired of suffering the pains of identification. And then it begins to make an effort to wake up until the awakening happens. And then it has a clear viewing or seeing that, hey, I'm not this thing. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the little self. Yeah? I am consciousness. And gradually this awakening becomes stronger and more clear, until consciousness becomes completely disidentified with the instruments, with the body and with the mind. The whole process is impersonal, but we believe it is personal, and is described in the spiritual literature as a personal process. It's described as, I am making an effort to grow spiritually, and I am attaining this level of realization and that level of realization, and I am the doer of this process. It's not the case. So we could say that actually the little self, the me, has never been there, never was there. I, as Jan, I was never here. It's not that with awakening there was the seeing that Jan was a story. No, it's just it's that a Jan was always a story, was always a conceptual idea, and same in your case. There is no difference. Sandy does not exist, never existed, never will exist, never is, never will be, and never was. But still there is life there, right? But that life is impersonal. That life is just the life that sees through or lives through that consciousness that is perceiving through all of us. So, questions?
Do you think eventually we reach a point when we...
Can you speak louder so it will get the microphone?
Do
Will
you
get.
think eventually we reach a point when we merge completely with God or the Creator? And when that happens, there is no longer any consciousness?
Okay. So, let me repeat the question just in case it was not captured by the microphone. Diane is asking if I believe that there will come a time where the merging with the divine will be so complete that
There is no longer consciousness.
that there is no longer consciousness, right? The merging with the divine, first of all, the word merging, right, with God or with the divine is a bhakti word. It's the way this is described, or the narrative that we see in the bhakti path, that eventually we want to merge our little self into the big self, right? So it's a beautiful, the idea of merging is a beautiful story. There will be no merging. The merging already happened. We are that, right? So we are that, and there is just that looking through us.
So there's no consciousness.
Well, there is consciousness in the sense that there is consciousnessing, right? There is consciousnessing through this organism. There is consciousnessing of this room, and there is consciousnessing of this experience, and there is consciousness of this body. So consciousnessing is a verb, actually, and consciousness is the objectivization of a verb that it creates problems, right? Because actually a more precise language would be awarenessing, consciousnessing, perceiving, attending, noticing, observing. These are verbs, right? And the minute we give them an object, we objectivize them or subjectivize them, then we generate nouns, right? Consciousness, awareness, observer, perceiver. But when we try to find these nouns in our experience, we never find them. We find in the experience that there is consciousnessing of this room, but we cannot find the consciousnesser, right? We find that there is observing, we cannot find the observer. We find that there is perceiving, and we cannot find the perceiver. The perceiver is a story of the language.
This room doesn't even really exist.
Okay, so Diane is
My
saying,
point is when we merge or when we go back, when I know we have never left the divine. We've never left the divine.
no,
We just dreamed that we left the divine.
right.
But when we awaken from the dream, as the divine, as part of the divine, isn't there only oneness, love,
Yes.
joy?
Well, in the awakened state, there is the perception of oneness, right? Is the oneness is seen clearly. There is the perception that the self is this, is everything, right? That it has no parts even, right? It's just all this, including the body and the mind and everything. Everything is the self. Nothing is not the self. The whole universe is the self. So, in the awakening to the oneness, because there is also the awakening to the emptiness, which is what we have been discussing before. But in the awakening to the oneness, consciousness becomes aware that there is just one, right? But does it need to discard the body or discard the images or discard the... No, the images continue, the sounds continue, the experience continues, but now it's interpreted by the brain, so to speak, in a different way. The interpretation of the sensory inputs is not converted into breaking down this reality, breaking it down into parts. Because the breaking it down into parts is not done by the senses, it's done by the thoughts. So when you look without thoughts, when you look without words, when you look without names, actually you see just one thing, right? So the senses are not really that much of a problem to perceive reality, to perceive unity. Is the thought that comes later and divides reality into parts by naming them. The only way that I can see this cup as something different than the rest of the universe is by holding in my head at some level that this is a cup. Right? If we see without words, without names, without we don't perceive separation. That's why animals, they are somewhat in the state of oneness, and we see this in dogs. Why they are so happy, right? Because they are not breaking down reality into parts through their imagination and thinking. Now, I'm using the word reality, but actually what is informed through the senses could be called relative reality, right? Because this has a relative reality, but it's much more real than a thought, right? So it has a relative reality. It will disappear into dust and then into nothing. So eventually all this is, you could say in the ultimate, is the imagination of consciousness, of the divine, right? And it's sustained by consciousness also, which is another realization, further realization into the truth, that this is being sustained by consciousness, and it is consciousness. But still, even before that, we can have the realization of oneness, and the realization of oneness is quite liberating, right? So, and still we see through the senses, still we perceive the room, but we don't have the word room in the head. or we don't take the word room, if the word room comes, it's not able to break down the perception of oneness. Now, the pointer, there is no one here, leads into all this. So it's the entrance, right? It's the door, it's the portal into all this beautiful state of consciousness. And that's why it's called awakening, because you see through the me, the little me, and then that leads into later into, well, if there is no one here, there is no one there either. Everybody's empty of self, so nobody has any identity. It's just imagination, right? So everybody's empty of self. They imagine to have a separate self. That's true. But what is in there is life itself. So the first realization is there is no one here. The second realization is there is no one anywhere. Yeah, and later on it comes the realization that there is just oneness. So Nisargadatta says, when I am nothing, that is wisdom, and when I am everything, that is love. I call it love, he said. And between these two realizations, my life revolves, right? So he was seeing emptiness, and he was seeing oneness, and between these two, his life was transpiring. But everything, all these states of consciousness, they begin to come after the realization that the me is a story, and it's obvious. The reason is obvious. It's like the concept, the belief in the me, in the little self, is like the cork in the bottle of ignorance, right? Of our true self. We remove the cork, and then the truth begins to reveal itself. But we need to remove the cork, and the cork is the me. The cork is the little self that I believe to be, because its focus is requiring so much energy, so much concentration, so much attention, so much psychic energy. It's thinking about me all the time, myself, my past, my traumas, my projects, my future, my me, my things. All these things are creating identity, right? The human identity is immensely complex. It's hundreds and hundreds of thoughts, psychic energy, enormous amount of psychic energy that is liberated when we see through that thing, at least to some degree. So awakening doesn't, in fact, liberate all this energy completely. Some identifications still will hold on, and you can create new identifications even after awakening. You begin to, somebody gives you an object, and you begin to feel that you are the owner of that object. That's it. That's an identification. I am this. I am the owner of this object. Until life comes and helps you to get rid of that identification. It breaks down the object, right? You become attached to your car or truck, and then you get it gets destroyed in a crash, right? I went through that. just to remind you that you are not the owner of that thing. You are something else. You are not the owner of anything. You are much more. You are the owner of the whole universe, or you have nothing. Either way, I have nothing. I am the owner of nothing, or I am the owner of everything. The whole universe is mine. But in between, it generates limitation, right? More questions?
Not a question, but I kind of remember reading from that book, Stroke of Insight. I think that's what it was called, where the lady had a stroke and it kind of gave her an awakening experience, right? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and I remember, and I think this was kind of what you were saying. When she had the stroke, she was trying, because she could feel herself having it, and she went to the phone to call for help, but it's like she couldn't, the numbers weren't, it's like everything was merging into one because she couldn't, had to
Right.
struggle to even differentiate. I think that's what it was, between the numbers, right? So
Right.
that's,
And that unity that she began to perceive is because the stroke damaged the the part of the brain that has to do with language, which is in the temporal lobes. So that particular damage gave her the experience.
yeah.
And then she had to relearn to talk, right? So, yeah, but we don't want to have the experience in that way, right?
No.
An irreversible experience, or pretty much close to that, right? She was able to get her language back, but probably it took her several years, if I remember.
Yeah.
So you don't need to do that. You don't need to have an experience like that, but because the only thing that is necessary is that the brain needs to go silent, right? It needs to go silent. And then the perception of the unity comes naturally as a result of that. And sometimes it doesn't need to be a perfect silence either. So intention, intention is the key here. Why these things, why these realizations come to us? Because we have the intention of having them. We want them, right? So in that regard, and you could say there is the intention. You don't need to say, I have the intention. The intention shows up in the mind-body organism to have that experience, and then what follows is the experience. So you can use this opportunity to create the intention. How you create the intention? You say, I want to experience oneness. I would love to experience oneness. I think it will be pretty cool. Yeah, I would like to experience that freedom. So that is the intention, is a wanting. And then it will come. It may come immediately, or it may come, in a few months, but it will come. In some cases, it comes to people that have not even done any intention. It's like a blessing that comes, right? And I have seen that with quite a few people, that they were just walking on the beach and boom, they got it, right? Or they were at the top of a mountain looking at the valley, and that's it. It happened. So nature seems to be in nature seems to be a good catalyst for this too. People in nature tend to have more of these experiences. So to spend time in nature, is a good idea. for some meditation works also, right? And the pointer that points to the oneness, at least the one that I like the most, is there is just the self. There is just the self. This is all the self, right? There is just the self. There is nothing else. The Hindus, the Indians, they say there is just Brahma, one Brahma without a second. There is just Brahma. In the mystic traditions, in the Christian mysticism, they say there is just God. God is everything.
It seems to me that there's a lot of resistance from the ego to becoming or going into that state of oneness, or because
Right.
Even if to me, even if you say I want this, there's part of you, that the self
That says, no, I don't want it.
the ego that says, oh no, you're not going to kill me. Oh no.
Right.
So
See,
it's
good point. Good, excellent point. Yes, this is true. The ego is the problem.
and even the thing is more that it's kind of unconscious,
Yes, it's more
Unconscious
in the
resistance.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got it, right? You were able to catch that thought, that feeling, right? So what we do with that feeling? If you notice that there is a feeling of resistance to let go and experience the oneness, then you can use the surrendering technique, right? And you say, because there is a part of you that is higher and more interested in this than the part that is saying no. See, you're not completely, you're not completely on the side of that nay voice, that voice that is saying no, right? You're not completely on its side. There is a part of you also, and you can become aware that there is a part of you that wants this. There's a part of you that is saying, yes, this is liberating. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to disappear. On the contrary, you, as life, you will be much more alive. Because the ego is trying to tell you that I will die, right? But actually, it's dead already. No, the ego is not life. It's only a program. And life is this perceiving, this unique perceiving of your environment, with consciousnessing of the environment. So, and this sense of bigness, that is not the ego. So you can use the surrendering technique to surrender that idea and feeling that no, I don't want oneness. And how you do it? Well, the template for the surrendering technique is this blank is surrendered to the divine completely. Thank you, right? So what you put in the blank is this feeling of not wanting, or this feeling of resistance to the experience of oneness is surrendered to the divine completely. Thank you, right? Because you don't want that thing to keep obstaculizing and impeding the most beautiful experiences that can come in life.
Right, but I think what I was trying to say, and I didn't get it across correctly, is what if you're not, what if you say, yeah, I want this, but it's not coming, which means that unconsciously there's resistance, and you're, not even aware of that resistance. You know what I'm saying?
So you are talking about the voice that says, when you say I want this, the voice will say, oh no, but it will not come, right?
Mm,
It's the doubting Thomas in all of us, right?
yeah, maybe, or
Because
yeah.
because intention, the universe is based on intention, right? Everything that we see, the whole universe has been created out of intention, right? Intentionality, but without doubt. So the doubt is something human. So when you see the doubting coming, let's say you create the intention, yes, I want to experience oneness, right? Yes, yes. And then the thought comes, oh, but it will not come to you. Oh, no, no, no. That's for other people, not for you, right? Is that what you mean? That voice also can be surrendered.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not even sure that I'm aware of the doubt. It's just, hmm. It's maybe even more in the background, the resistance. There's not even that, but obviously it's there because otherwise I would feel the oneness.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
not necessarily, because it could be that your intention is very pure and free, yeah, from resistance, but it may take a while until it manifests. So it may happen immediately, or it may happen, because there could be some issues also that need to be solved earlier. It could be.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I would doubt it. I mean, if the intention is really pure and complete, it will come. That's why I really like that technique that practice that you grab a glass of water in the morning and you take a moment to energize it with an intention, right? The intention, I want oneness, I want oneness, I want oneness, right? Oneness, 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 complete oneness. And then you drink, and then you do it day after day,
Mm.
day after day. It takes seconds, right? But you do it every day, so that the intention becomes so powerful that it will break every barrier. I use that for the awakening protocol. I tell people before the awakening session to get a glass of water every day and say, I want to wake up, I want to wake up, I want to see the truths about myself.
What would be really good would be to take the water, put the intention in the water, and then leave it out when it's a full moon, or, leave it out for the full moon.
To strengthen.
Really energize it.
Right, right, to energize. So Diane is talking about leaving the water and putting the intention, leaving it in outside during full moon to energize it. Now, you can energize the water in other ways. We have been working at this with one of my students that does kinesiology, and he has found through kinesiology that actually is very, very easy to energize water. So you can raise the calibration of water from, let's say, tap water, right? Will calibrate less than 200, not even integrity, 170. You put it in the glass, and then you begin to say the word love, right? Which calibrates 500. After a few times that you are holding the water in your hand and you are stating love, 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 the water is calibrating 500, right? And then another thing he discovered is that the next day the calibration goes down, not back to 170, but it will go down, let's say 400. So you need to do it again, right? But that's why it's better you do it and you drink it immediately. But if you use the word bliss, then it will calibrate 600. And if you can use also the word emptiness, that calibrates 1000, right? You can in fact intend to make the water calibrate 1000. So you say emptiness, emptiness, emptiness of self, 1000, 1000, 1000, and then you drink, right? So it's so simple. These things, take minutes. It's not seconds, in fact. It's a powerful practice. Intentionality. Intention is what has created this universe. So we can have at our disposal the power of intention. Let's use it, right? For what? To free the mind-body organism from the little self. I remember my own the awakening that happened here, and it happened after a couple of months that with my wife we were using Ormus, and we were before meditation we were getting a little bit of Ormus and getting it internally after energizing it with intention. I want to wake up. I want to wake up. And after some time, in a conversation with my teacher at that time, boom, it happened. So did the intention generate the right environment for that to happen? I have no doubt. It did. How long it took? See, I meditated for 30 years, about 2 hours a day in average, and it didn't trigger awakening.
Right.
But the working with intention took 2 months, and every time it took about a minute of our time. So this is the power of intention, right? People say, "Oh, meditation is so fantastic." Yes, it's fantastic, but intention is more powerful. So you want to live empty of self. That's a good practice. You get a glass of water in the morning and you say, emptiness, 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 empty of self, emptiness, 1000, 1000, 1000, and you drink. Watch what happened after a few weeks doing that.
You will feel empty.
Huh?
You will feel empty.
You will feel empty.
And then she'll be saying, fullness, fullness, fullness.
Then you go for the fullness, yes. But go first for the emptiness, right? No one goes through to the Father if it's not through me. What that means, right? First we go to emptiness, then we go to fullness. Why first emptiness? Because otherwise the little self will grow, will say, oh, I will be bigger, right? No, you eliminate the little self first. And then you go for the fullness, which is free of self too, free of the little self. So what is the obstacle? The obstacle is a belief, it's an assumption. The obstacle is the assumption or the belief that there is someone here inside. That's a belief. It's not real. There is awareness seen through it, through this mind-body system, consciousness in through this mind-body system, impersonal. The English conceptualization is I am aware. That's the false. There is awareness. That's the truth. There is awareness here, right? Awareness of this room is obvious. Awareness of the temperature of the body. There is awareness. But the I that is aware, where is it? Then people say, oh, there is a body here, right? That's I, that's me. No, because the body is being perceived, so it's in front. It's not behind awareness. It's perceived by awareness. So awareness is a verb. It's called aware. It should be called awarenessing or perceiving, and the body is actually perceived. It's in the front. It's not behind. The only way we know that the body is here is because there is awareness of the body. So there is perceiving of the body. Therefore, the body is in front and there is perceiving of the body. So obviously we're not the body, we are awareness. Impersonal awareness. And the mind the same. The mind is thoughts and feelings and all this movie, but it's perceived, it's being perceived, it's in front. So mind and body are in front. There's perceiving or awarenessing, and the idea that there is a perceiver behind or somebody aware behind, it can never be proved because that thing can never be found. It's not there. So the thought there is no one here actually can be your only spiritual path, so to speak. You aim at that. Once you get it, you aim at sustaining that, sustaining the emptiness, that there is no one here, removing that fake center of imagination, that imagination that there is someone here that creates a feeling of contraction instead of expansion and emptiness. So you can after awakening, yes, you see this, but the contraction will happen again, and then you keep dissolving it. You keep dissolving it, and you keep dissolving also all identifications. You see an identification and you surrender it. The surrendering technique works for that. Like you see the identification with a particular story, like I am my profession, you surrender that. Any other question? Okay, let's stop here. So, thank you for coming.